All right, we're going to do a quick update on the fires in Southern California. If the first 10 seconds of this video is the only thing you see, this is what I want you to see. This is the satellite imagery, and since these fires started, we've consistently seen large amounts of smoke coming off of them, and that's what it looks like right now. I mean, you might be able to, if you look very closely, see some wisps of smoke, but it looks like there is very little fire behavior going on right now. And that's kind of the reason that I'm doing this video. If you watched yesterday's live stream, you might have heard me say that since it's Sunday, I'm taking a rest day. But I did read a couple of comments where people were asking for an update today. And then, just to be completely honest, I wanted to see what kind of coverage was being done on it. And not to call them out too much, but I looked at KTLA's video. And in the first 10 seconds, they showed a house on fire. They showed like 10-foot flame lengths. They showed all this crazy fire behavior to basically grab your attention. And as we can see on the satellite imagery, that is not the current situation. And to be honest, it made me quite angry. And luckily, I've calmed down before recording this video. So what I'm hoping to do in this video is not to call them out or bash them or anything. I worked in a newsroom for 3 years. I still fill in at a newsroom on occasion. And I know that newsrooms are filled with good people who, for the most part, are just trying to do their jobs well. But I would be lying if I said when I see huge flames and structures burning, when the actual current situation is much less critical in that, it makes me think that perhaps people are trying to capitalize on people's fear for monetary gain. And yeah, that just... I don't like that. Now, with that being said, I'm not here to say that the fires are over, because there is still very critical conditions on this fire. We're going to look at some of the observations. There's 45 mile per hour winds right there, 26 mile per hour winds right there, 30 mile per hour winds right there. We also have critical fire weather conditions through Wednesday. So here's where the nuance comes in, and maybe that's where we can try to not assume bad intentions with KTLA, or they're maybe just doing the same thing that a lot of the other stations might be doing. Maybe there is no bad intentions. Maybe they're just looking at the forecast, and it is critical fire weather right now. So it certainly is not over at this point. So with those critical fire conditions, that's the red flag in place through Wednesday. And when you do have winds that are like we're seeing on the observations right here, 45 miles per hour, things can flare up very quickly. So, yeah, but we just gotta keep our eye on these fires. But as of right now, I just wanted to share the good news that that's the best Southern California has looked since these fires started. So let's check out the Palisades fire in just a few minutes. We'll do a quick one today. Acreage, 23,000 acres, containment 11%. I almost never even say those because that doesn't actually tell us anything. What tells us something is by looking at how the fire has been progressing, where the fire has been burning actively most recently, and then where we might predict the fire to move in the future. So if you'll remember yesterday morning, it was a pretty critical situation down here in Mandeville Canyon. You can see that fire perimeter right there, how close it got to coming to the bottom of this canyon where you have all of those structures highlighted in that kind of white 3D image right there. And the big fear there is if it goes to the bottom of the canyon, one, it wipes out those structures, but then fire likes to travel uphill. So I was afraid that if it gets down to the bottom, then it's going to be able to make a quick run up the other side. And I do believe that 1 or 2 houses were lost, most likely in this area right here. But the fact that they stopped this before there was more destruction is pretty amazing. The other spot we were watching closely yesterday was this southern edge right here, because this was actually in alignment with the winds. They're coming mostly from the northwest, northeast, kind of pushing the fire down to the south, and similar story to Mandeville Canyon up towards the north up there. The fire basically comes right down to the structures, and then they were able to stop it in its tracks. And we were watching that live on some of the cameras up there. The other spot where there was some growth is up here on the north. I think we'll actually be able to see that a little bit better on the Google Earth imagery though. I finally got a recent perimeter for this one. So the old one that I had was from the 9th. So we can look at where this fire has grown from the 9th to the 12th. There was a little growth on that western side there, but clearly most of the activity has been on this northeastern side of the fire. Right there we see as well, bumps up to those structures, gets close to Mandeville Canyon, but doesn't actually push through there. And then that spot on the north that I wanted to show, I believe there is actually a firing operation here where they put some fire along this ridge line where they have kind of their control line. And then because of the wind, the fire burns back into itself. So that clears out some of the fuels so that by the time that like main fire gets there, the fuels have already burnt out and they can't come rushing down this hill and threaten all of these structures here. And it does look like it slopped over a bit right there. You see how the fire perimeter comes past where you have that, it looks like a road right there. They usually do these firing operations right off of a road, but it looks like it did slop over. But I was watching one of their updates and they said that they're able to get some crews in and they're actually doing some good work up there to control that little slop over. So that's the fire perimeter. Now we can look at where is it actively burning, where has there been heat recently, and that is where I think some of the good news comes in. Because if we look at this map right here, I always show this one because the stars just clearly show you where the heat has been recently. The yellow stars are 48 to 24 hours ago, so you notice almost the entire fire right here doesn't even have those stars. So most of this fire hasn't even seen fire in days, except for maybe some smoldering that's going on. So that's the first thing to know of why I take 23,000 acres. I don't really view that as helpful information because most of this fire is not actually actively burning anymore. Where it has been actively burning, as we just saw on the fire perimeter kind of progression, is up in the northeast here. But this is where the good news comes in. Is that orange is what was active 12 to 24 hours ago. That was yesterday morning. I think I did an hour and a half live stream because it looked like a pretty critical situation there, especially around Mandeville Canyon. But you notice it's orange, meaning 12 to 24 hours ago, and not all that much of the red color. There's actually only a few red stars right there, which means heat detected in the last 12 hours. So that's the best I'd say this fire has looked. And I keep thinking about how the coverage of this was kind of making me angry, and it just felt that they weren't saying the main story, which the main story right now is that things are looking as good as they have since these fires started. Not seeing any smoke right there. You look at the heat detections, very little in that red color, which represents where the heat has been recently. So, and then the other thing is, if you actually look at some of the cameras, we were looking at 3 different cameras yesterday, kind of pinpointing that southern edge of the fire, where it was pushing right up against a lot of these structures. And if we go back to, it's that camera, we're kind of triangulating that southern edge right there. And if we look at that and press play over the last hour, if you look closely, you might be able to see some smoke popping up right there. So the fire's not out. You have smoldering areas, and I have seen it before where it looks like you're in the clear, and then some gusty winds pick up, burning ember, reignites like a shrub or something, and then it starts to take off again. But again, I think the main story right now is that it's good news. The fire looks as good as it has since it started. Now, with all that being said, we have a very critical weather forecast moving forward. Anytime there's a red flag warning, it's high fire danger. And we have a red flag warning not just for today, but through Wednesday for gusty winds and low relative humidity. And on top of that, Southern California has seen very little rain, so it's exceptionally dry in these areas as well. So it's not going to take much for the fire to flare back up again, or for even new fires to start. And the reason I'm being careful to not say, oh, the fires are out, we're in the clear, is it's windy out there right now. That is an observation. That's an actual weather station on the ground, and that's showing 42 mile per hour winds right there. What we have seen, though, is that the wind is a bit nuanced for these fires. So imagine the Palisades fires right about there. You can see maybe up towards the north, you have some of those 30 to 40 mile per hour winds. But then where we had some of the activity yesterday, it almost seems like it's a little bit sheltered from the wind, 10 to 20 miles per hour. And we noticed yesterday that this model was even kind of overestimating it a little bit. So if we look at the GFS, it actually shows much calmer wind gusts. Somebody actually commented that yesterday, that they've noticed that the ECMWF, which is the European model, has been overestimating the winds. Now, right now, I would say the ECMWF actually seems to be a little bit closer towards the truth, just because we have those 30 to 40 mile per hour winds right there. And the American model is showing almost no wind right now. So we're just going to stick on the Euro for the time being and see what happens throughout the rest of the day today. So let's just click right in there. And it looks like the winds actually diminish throughout the day today. And then that's 10 p.m. tonight. That's a 12 mile per hour wind gust. So that means your sustained winds are around 5 miles per hour. So that's a good forecast right there. But then as we get into early tomorrow morning, you start to see those winds pick back up again, especially up in that maybe higher elevations. That's 20 to 30 mile per hour gusts. And then it looks like they continue to pick up into early Monday morning. So I think that's maybe where the red flag is coming from. Maybe not so much this afternoon and this evening, but early tomorrow morning. Seems like the winds pick up again. And then 10 a.m., it looks like they really pick up again. So that right there is a critical fire weather forecast, because you combine those 30 to 40 mile per hour winds with relative humidity in the teens as early as 10 a.m. And then you get into the afternoon and it most likely would get even drier. That's a critical weather forecast right there. And then that's Monday afternoon, where we're combining extremely windy conditions with extremely dry relative humidity and dry fuels. So although there's not much smoke on the fire right now, the forecast is definitely challenging as we move forward. And I think it's actually supposed to get even more challenging as we get into Monday night into early Tuesday morning. So it looks like there's a brief, it's not even a reprieve right there. So we get into Tuesday morning. Yeah, those winds return once again, and actually looks a bit more widespread at that point, filtering in over the Palisades fire a bit more than tomorrow morning does. Notice right there, that's tomorrow morning. You see those gusts really pick up right there, but where we've had some of the activity on the Palisades fire recently, looks like it's maybe a bit sheltered from the wind. But then as we go into Monday night into Tuesday morning, it looks like the Palisades fire isn't sheltered as much, and more of that wind is widespread across the entire area. So I'd say this afternoon to this evening, hopefully they take advantage of the lack of heat that's on the fire right now, really get in there, try to get some crews in there, mop up what they can, try to put in some new lines, and prepare for the challenging conditions that are on the horizon. And just to summarize that, just in case I just showed too many maps and confused, we'll just look at the actual incident action plan for the Palisades fire and what they're saying about the weather. They're saying through the operational period, critical fire weather conditions can be expected with gusty north to northeast winds and low relative humidity. The worst conditions are expected through this afternoon during the period of strongest winds and lowest humidity. However, elevated to critical fire weather conditions will continue tonight into Monday morning. Therefore, a red flag warning is in effect. From Monday afternoon through Wednesday, critical fire weather conditions are expected to continue as Santa Ana winds increase. So definitely going to be watching that one closely. The final thing I'll say about the Palisades fire, I know some people are still evacuated, so you haven't been able to get in there to know, like, is your home one of the ones that survived? Is it not? Because when we look at the fire perimeter, there are islands in there where they were able to save some of these areas. And then even within this fire perimeter, if your home is under that, some of that might be low severity burning, some of it might be high severity burning. So you probably have a lot of questions about did your home survive? And they're starting to send out the damage assessment teams. And I put the links for 2 of those maps in the description of this video, where you can actually go in here, and the red means destroyed, orange would be major damage, and then black would mean no damage. So right here, you can see that maybe some of these homes in black did a lot of fire preparation and that's the reason they were saved. But when you have conditions like what we had on this fire, some of this might just be completely due to luck. But what you're able to do is actually click in here. You can click a home and then it actually has an image of it. So you can use that as a resource that might be hard to look at, but sometimes it's better just to know than to be sitting, waiting, and wondering. So those links are in the description that you can use. And then just the other things I'll just briefly touch on the Eaton fire. There was something that I highlighted in here. Current situation, last night firefighters continued tactical patrols and responded. So strong winds overnight contributed to active fire behavior with interior flare-ups. Again, we're looking at the Eaton fire now. Today, minimal fire growth is expected with continued smoldering and creeping. And that seems to be what we're seeing on the satellite imagery. Not much smoke coming off of the Eaton fire, as well as when we look at the heat detections on that one. I mean, maybe that red is some of the flare-ups that they were talking about. But if we look at the current satellite heat detections, where if there was heat coming off of it right now, we'd have big yellow to orange to red boxes. We're not seeing any of those on Eaton, and we're also not seeing any of those on Palisades. And then finally, we're certainly not seeing them on the Kenneth. The Kenneth burnt 1,000 acres, but that is at 100% containment, and forward progress has officially stopped there. So that's our update for the day. Again, a lot of nuance to the forecast today. The gist is that the fires have the lowest amount of heat and activity on them that we've seen since the fire started. You look at the satellite imagery, you can't even tell where the fires are because there doesn't look like there's much smoke coming off of them. However, the fires are not out. You're still going to have smoldering areas, and my concern moving forward is that we have critical fire weather conditions ahead with some winds, it looks like up over 30 to 50 miles per hour, mixed with exceptionally dry conditions as well, which could act to flare these fires back up, or heaven forbid, new fires start as well, which would be the last thing we need. So hopefully this video was helpful and maybe put some of the unnecessary fears to rest, but maybe created a rational and reasonable sense of fear with some of the challenging weather that we have ahead. So yeah, hope it was helpful. Thoughts and prayers go out to everybody who's been affected by these fires, and thanks for watching.